is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Fantasy Time. I am your host, Jacob Cutter, the Fantasy Guy, and today, you know what it is. I got another week's edition of Stardom, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of Them. Obviously, I mean, if you've been following along, you know that we haven't had any Get Rid of Them kind of since playoffs started and we've kind of been going into fantasy playoffs. But championship week is upon us for a majority of us. I know some people have extended their fantasy playoffs now into week 18, but for most of us, this is it. This is championship week, right? So I got the goods for you guys. I got all the stuff to get you fired up, ready to go into your championship feeling confident. The good news is of course, we're returning with the injury report. We do not have nearly as many people on this injury report as we have been seeing over the last, few weeks or so. Bunch of people coming off COVID lists today, so you are definitely going to want to check any platform that you use, right? Any platform that you use to make sure that you are getting the proper information so that you know how to set your lineup for your championship game, right? Most important game of the season. Money on the line, bragging rights on the line, right? Some of you, it may be the first time you've ever won a fantasy championship, right? Don't be the fool that leaves someone in that is out, right? Don't be that guy. I'm telling you right now, don't be that guy, right? And of course, right, if at any point during this video you like what you're seeing, please smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, just tap on that bell notification. That way, anytime new videos drop, and they drop every Wednesday and Friday. I know this video's dropping Thursday, okay? I got a new camera for Christmas, testing it out, thought everything was good, went to sit down to edit it, check the audio, absolute garbage. Nothing I could do with it to salvage it. Extremely frustrated, but look, I'm here, it's my first season, I'm gonna make mistakes, but I'm here to deliver you the best possible product that I can put together for you. Of course, there's been some mistakes here and there, but again, my ultimate goal is to deliver you week in and week out the best possible product that I can put together for you, because I honestly care about making sure that I'm giving you guys the best information that I can possibly deliver, right? That's what it's about. That's why I started this channel, because I believe that I got the information to help you succeed. And I want to make sure that I can deliver on that. So I want to make sure that I'm delivering the best possible product for you. So that's why this episode is dropping on Thursday, But normally episodes drop every Wednesday and Friday, right? And we're dropping knowledge all season long. It's right there at your feet. You just got to look down, pick it up, shove it in that head of yours, shake it around, and boom. Better fantasy player and a more knowledgeable football human being, right? Because that's what it's about. If you're not growing, you are dying, right? That's our motto here at Fantasy Time. Live by it, internalize it, stick by it, right? Just think about it, right? Just like any grass, any tree, any flower, any bush, anything that grows, right? If it's not growing, it's dying. So make sure that you're always growing in whatever field you want. But obviously, we cover fantasy and football here. We cover sports here. We got the sports knowledge for you. So we're dropping it all season long. So smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, just tap on that bell notification to stay up to date on all the latest content. But without further ado, let's get into it in another week's edition of Stardom, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of Them. Alrighty, let's get into it. So, if you're new to the episode, new to the channel, new to Fantasy Time, new to Fantasy Sports, or just new to how Stardom, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of Them works, allow me to explain. So, basically what I've done is on the Google Sheets, which the link will always be down in the description for, I have my own version of Stardom, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of Them. Like I kind of said in the intro, is we haven't really had any Get Rid of Them's kind of since week 14, week 13, going into playoffs, just because I feel that you kind of know who to get rid of at that point. You don't really need me harping on them, including them in the video every single week, right? I just feel like that kind of gets monotonous and it gets old after a while, right? So I leave it to you sometimes to basically kind of see for yourself, okay, yeah, this person's not performing, so you gotta drop them, right? For all my new fantasy players, again, there is multiple ways that you can get in contact with me to ask questions on who you should drop, who you should start, who you should sit, right? Never be afraid to ask me a question. I will always give you my honest and well thought out opinion, right? And suggestions. So that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you and guide you through your fantasy season. So basically what I've done is how Stardom Sit 'em works is I have 4 categories for you, right? Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. 4 categories for you. Within those 4 categories, I have 3 players within those categories. Now, you will see as we go throughout this video, in the stardoms, I usually have another section called honorable mentions. And that's just because a lot of the times I'm looking through and I'm like, oh, well, you know what? There's kind of more than 3 people that kind of deserve a start. So we're going to add them in there, and we're going to kind of add them in there as honorable mentions, right? So they're not really in the 3 main guys, but you should definitely take a look at them, whether it be a flex or a placement or just to start them for just that week, right? Never really a bad thing to pick somebody up for just one game. They go off and then you drop them, right? That's what's happened sometimes, and that's the benefit of the waiver wire. So never be afraid of that waiver wire. But like we always do, we always start with the stardoms. I was gonna say situms. We always start with the stardoms. We always start with the quarterbacks, and coming in at your number 3 quarterback this week, you have Trey Lance. I know, stay with me, okay? I get it. Trey Lance, what? Well, hear me out. Jimmy's injured, which we'll cover in the injury report. Status is uncertain for Sunday, so we don't really know yet if he's going to play. And this is setting up perfectly for Trey. Let's just kind of rewind the tape here. Let's go back a decade, right? I know it's a long time now, but let's go back to 2011 when Alex Smith had his revival season. Let's fast forward to the following year, almost 10 years to the date, right? Almost. What happened? Poor Alex Smith gets injured. For who? Colin Kaepernick. And what does Colin do? Lead them to the Super Bowl. Now I get that wasn't the Niners' purpose of drafting him. Well, maybe not the franchise. It definitely was Jim Harbaugh's purpose, because we later found out that Kaepernick was his guy, and he went out of his way to make sure that he got Kaepernick on that team. So could we be seeing an Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick 2.0 situation? I mean, it's set up there. Jimmy was only going to be there one more year, right? They got Trey to replace Jimmy. What better chance, what better experience to get him than a tight playoff race, right? A super close playoff race. So watch out for Trey Lance taking on Houston. Nice little cupcake game to get him in there at home. Kyle Shanahan saying he's looking like the best he's ever looked. So clearly he looks to be improving, unless Kyle is just pulling our leg. So watch out for Trey Lance. But if you need a quarterback this week, Trey Lance is a very, very, very viable option against that Texans defense. That will play tough. But at home, Trey, I like it. Trey area, coming to the Bay Area, so watch out. Number 2 is my team right here, baby. Your number 2 quarterback is the man that came out on Fuego. I mean, on Fuego like Fuego's never been on Fuego. Holy moly. I'm talking about Joey B. Joe Burrow, your number 2 stardom quarterback this week, taking on a Kansas City defense that isn't red hot, isn't lightning, isn't really nothing special. So there is a very high possibility, especially with what's on the line, especially with his attitude just towards life, and just basically he wants to prove everybody wrong. I don't blame him. Joey B, you got my heart, brother. You're my guy. I cannot take this franchise wherever it goes. I'm on board. I am along for the ride, my friend. So, Joe Burrow against that Kansas City defense, your number 2 stardom quarterback this week, and your number 1 stardom quarterback this week. And he finally has woken up. He finally went off, right? And that is Mr. Dak Prescott. Yes, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Not going to be an easy game, that's for sure. But with the way he played last week, with that kind of rejuvenation we kind of saw of the Cowboys, is kind of them waking up, this little battle now that they have through their offense and the defense, Dallas is going to be scary. And I think he has a monster game. He's going to have a monster game, I believe, against Arizona to beat Arizona. So Dak Prescott is your number 1 stardom quarterback this week for the stardoms. Moving on to the running backs. No honorable mentions for the quarterbacks. We'll get to that though. Moving on to the running backs. So your number 3 running back this week is Devin Singletary, and I know he has been on my shit list the entire season. The entire season he's been on it. But, however, the last 3 weeks, the last few weeks, he has been absolutely going off, and he's finally found his call, or not really his calling, but he's just finally found his game in the season, right? His fantasy game. And if you have him, or if you go look at his waiver wire stats, I mean, he's been going off. Definitely warranted a pickup. Definitely warranted a start. So Devin Singletary coming at your number 3 running back this week. Your number 2 running back this week is Rashad Penny. Yes, if you don't know who this is, he's a fill-in for Chris Carson. They kind of have a running back carousel there in Seattle, right? You don't know who is going to be the running back there for Seattle, right? But Rashad Penny, they wanted to be the guy. He has the injury bug. He just gets hurt, can't help but get hurt. Finally back off of injury, finally looks healthy, and is absolutely dominating right now. Great matchup this week, taking on the Lions. I would recommend, if you have him, put him in there. If you need a running back, go to the waiver wire and pick this man up, because he is going to be a solid pickup for you, especially if you just need it for one game. That's all we're talking about. We're talking about one game here, right? For those people in week 18, quit being weirdos, okay? Just finish in week 17. Week 18, just relax. You don't need all this pressure on you, right? But my week 17 championship people, he can be the hero, right? I can be your hero, baby, right? Let Rashad Penny be your hero. So, Rashad Penny, your number 2 running back this week. And your number 1 running back this week, we got the man at the beginning of the season that I thought was going to have a great fantasy year, but then just got completely overshadowed by the rejuvenation of Leonard Fournette. Yes, I'm talking about Ronald Jones. Yes, Ronald Jones II coming in as your number 1 stardom running back this week, and for good reason. I mean, Leonard Fournette's not healthy. Giovanni Bernard, not healthy. They need backs. They don't really have backs. They're down to their backup running backs, but Ronald Jones is a very viable back. He could easily be a starting running back for another team in the NFL. And he got his points last week. Against the Jets, I have to think he's going to get his points this week. So, Ronald Jones II is going to be your number 1 stardom running back this week for the running backs. Moving on, we got 2 honorable mentions this week for running back. The first one is Javonte Williams. Yes, Javonte Williams for the Broncos, taking on a Chargers defense that has just went like this. They look like the comet that hit Earth and don't look up, right? I mean, they just obliterated. They look horrible. Just tragically going down in the defensive rankings week in and week out. Absolutely getting manhandled last week by the Houston Dumpster Fire Texans. Oh, God, I love that name. But man, how do you let the Houston Dumpster Fire Texans beat you like that? Holy moly. Oh, it was so much on the line. And man, that's what happens. So I gotta think that Javonte Williams has the same success against that crappy defense that just let Houston run all over them. If you got running backs in this game, you might want to fill them in here, because that Charger defense is not good. Not good at all. Next up, we got, and I labeled one man as having the best name in the NFL. I was wrong. But if you've been following along, you know that Laviska Shenault Jr. is one of my favorite names in the NFL, has been replaced by one of my favorite running backs. Now, favorite running back names in the NFL, which is Dare Ogunbowale. Holy moly, what a name, right? Dare Ogunbowale, absolute beast, filling in for an injured James Robinson. And again, we'll cover that in the injury report. Big loss. Well, maybe not this season, but next season, definitely. When they're finally able to get some stability with this team, definite big loss. And, Urban Meyer, there's so many things to say about this guy. Just going from such greatness to just such despair. Like, just get away from football. Stay out of the game, bro. Just leave. Just leave. I mean, great job with what you did with Utah to become a star. Obviously, you had one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of college football in Tim Tebow, and you had this amazing team around you that built you up to success. You did what you did at Ohio State, but every single place you go, there's always controversy. So, I labeled John Gruden as the clown. The real clown this year is Urban Meyer. I mean, 1 year out of retirement, coming back, and then getting fired before the season even is over. Absolute clown. And also hindering we'll get into it, but hindering a very important player's career. So dumb, but dare. Ogunbowale is going to be your number one honorable mention this week. I know, taking on a tough New England defense, but at the same time, they're going to get points. They don't really have many options on offense, and they're going to hand off the ball, and he can get yards. He's a tough runner and a tough catcher of the football in the passing game as well. So dare Ogunbowale, I love saying his name if you can't tell, is going to be your number one honorable mention this week for the running backs. Moving on to the wide receivers, your number 3 wide receiver this week is Jaylen Waddle, taking on a Tennessee defense that is pretty tough. It's pretty tough. I mean, I don't think they have any real gangbusters, but they are a tough team, and it's going to be a tough matchup. However, Jaylen Waddle and Tua, that chemistry is on fire, and they are able to use him in a multitude of packages, in a multitude of ways that make him so versatile as a weapon. So Jaylen Waddle is going to be your number 3 stardom wide receiver this week for taking on the Tennessee Titans. Your number 2 wide receiver this week, and he was number 2 last week, and he's part of this team as well, is T. Higgins. Yes, T. Higgins has had a massive breakout year this year. Not just a breakout game, but breakout year. He is a top fantasy option going into 2022, 2023, next season. You are going to want to target him in your draft next season, I promise you. Shades of Megatron last week when he just mosses those 2 guys, just sticks his arms up, grabs the ball, and just pulls it down. Incredible, and I think against those Kansas City corners who don't have a real top flight corner, I think he can do the same thing. So watch out for T. Higgins this week, taking on Kansas City, and that's why he is your number 2 wide receiver this week. And your number 1 wide receiver this week is Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, there is a reason why in 28 games with the Browns, he only had 7 touchdowns, and in 6 games, I believe the stat was, he has 4 touchdowns. There's a reason, and that reason is called Baker Mayfield, also known as a replaceable quarterback. I like Baker, I like his attitude, I like his grit, I like his heart, but a replaceable quarterback. I put him up on the tiers of Jimmy G, Derek Carr, right? Guys like that, guys who are good but will never be great. That's how I basically break down Baker Mayfield. Good, but not great, which equals replaceable in the NFL. So, Odell Beckham Jr. now having an actual quarterback, now having a person who can actually throw him the ball and get him the ball when he's open. Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be your number 1 starting wide receiver this week, taking on that Baltimore defense that got shredded last week by the Bengals. And your 2 honorable mentions this week, and your number 2, I guess, honorable mention to start us off is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Who? Yes, the man who has a dictionary for a name, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be your number 2 honorable mention this week, lighting it up. Absolutely lighting it up the last 4 weeks or so. If you have not been paying attention, this guy is going to be most likely available in your league unless you got some hard hitters, fantasy football players in your leagues. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, definitely worth a look, definitely worth a pickup, and definitely worth a start. He could definitely be the key to you winning your championship or getting you to your championship. Guaranteed that. Check out the stats. Next up, I don't like him, but your number 1 honorable mention this week is DK Metcalf. Russ seems to kind of slowly be putting it back together. Definitely an off season for him, definitely a down season for Russ, but however, taking on the Lions, I can see DK Metcalf breaking loose here for 1 or 2 touchdowns. I think he gets his yards. I think Russ looks a lot better against this Lions team. So we're going with DK Metcalf as your number 1 honorable mention this week. Moving on to the tight ends, your number 3 tight end from the same game, from the same team is Gerald Everett. Yes, Gerald Everett is your number 3 tight end this week. And let me tell you, he's been kind of fluctuating up and down, but the last few weeks, if you need a tight end, this is somebody who is getting 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15 points, right? He's actually scoring points when needed, and he came through last week. So if you need a tight end because your tight end's not cutting it, and let me tell you, there's very few tight ends that are cutting it this year in terms of fantasy value. So if you need some fantasy value, Gerald Everett has that fantasy value, taking on the Detroit Lions. I like the matchup. So Gerald Everett is going to be your number 3 tight end this week. Your number 2 tight end this week is Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry, taking on Jacksonville, horrible team, abysmal team. I think the Patriots walk all over them, and I think Hunter Henry has a massive game, a monster game. I mean, he's going to be open. Guaranteed he's going to be open, and he's going to score some touchdowns. So Hunter Henry is your number 2 tight end this week. And your number 1 tight end this week, and you should know by now, is Dalton Schultz. If you are not starting this guy, you are shooting yourself in the foot. Dalton Schultz is clearly the security blanket of the Dallas Cowboys, is clearly Dak's security blanket. He throws him the ball a lot, and he gets a lot of yards and a lot of targets. So Dalton Schultz is going to be your number 1 starting tight end this week. And your only honorable mention at tight end this week is Cameron Brate. Yes, Cameron Brate. I know, for all those people who are like, who? Cameron Brate? I mean, I thought he was relevant 2 or 3 years ago. Yes, but Cameron Brate is a solid option, especially since most people are injured now on the Bucs, right? Leonard Fournette, IR. Mike Evans, COVID, right? Chris Godwin, IR. These guys are gone. So now it's really up to Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Cameron Brate, and some of these other fill-in wide receivers, right? It just got tougher. The job just got tougher for Tom. But of course, he's up to the challenge, and he's won with a lot less. So I'm not really worried about Tom in the playoffs and anything like that. But Cameron Brate, look to him. Taking on the Jets could be a very good option to have at tight end, especially if Tom looks to target him, which I think they will. They thought he was going to target him last week. They did. I believe they're going to target him again this week. And that'll do it for this week's edition of, or I guess, not really edition, but that'll do it for this week's Stardoms. Next up, we got the Situms. Alrighty, moving on to the Situms, right? So, starting with the quarterbacks, your number 3 quarterback this week is Tyler Huntley. Yes, he's going to be coming off of COVID. They have changed the guidelines, which we will go over again in the injury report. But Tyler Huntley taking on the Rams. His status is uncertain for Lamar going into Sunday. So we'll see. I mean, if Tyler Huntley is there, I don't really like the matchup against the Rams. The Rams are coming together at the right time, and that team seems to be clicking with all those pieces that they've added. So taking on the Rams, I'm not really liking it. So Tyler Huntley is going to be your number 3 Situm quarterback this week if Lamar ends up not playing. And even if Lamar ends up playing, I don't know about starting Lamar either. So look at that as well. Your number 2 Situm quarterback this week is Jalen Hurts. And I know he balled out the first time taking on Washington. I think Washington, especially at home, plays a lot better defense. I do still think that the Eagles win this game. I think that the Eagles are a more complete game. They might have one of the best running games in the league, which is crazy to say. But Jalen Hurts is going to be your number 2 Situm quarterback this week. And your number 1 Situm quarterback this week is Captain Kirk Cousins. Yes, Kirk is going to be your number 1 Situm quarterback, taking on that Green Bay defense. I know he beat him the first time. I know, but I think at home, Green Bay 7-0 at home this season, looking to go undefeated at home. I think they do it. I think they handle Kirk, and I think they make a statement as showing that they are the best team in the league, which we'll see. Could be Aaron's year, right? That's what Brett Favre wanted him to do. He had one request, go get him a Super Bowl. This could be it. We shall see. But Kirk Cousins is going to be your number 1 Situm quarterback this week. Moving on to the running backs. Your number 3 Situm running back this week is, and bear with me, is Najee Harris. Yes, Najee Harris has been having a good, solid season, but taking on that Cleveland defense, tore him up the first time. Do not think it happens this time. Taking on Cleveland in Cleveland. Cleveland is getting a bunch of people back from COVID, so they're going to have a more complete team, and that defense is going to be hungry because they're not out of it. They're not out of a playoff spot. I know they lost. I know it's looking bleak for Cleveland, but Cleveland is not out of a playoff spot yet. So I think that defense is going to pin their ears back and go after Ben, Najee, Deontay, Clay. I think they're going to go after that entire team. So I think Najee Harris has a rough day there in the dog pound there in Cleveland, making him your number 3 sit-'em running back this week. Your number 2 sit-'em running back this week is Josh Jacobs. Yes, so Josh Jacobs has been having a decent season, and he's been having some solid fantasy games the last couple days, but I think the Colts come in here because the Colts, I know, want that division. They can smell it. They know they have the best. They know that they can challenge for the best running game in the NFL. Well, best running back in the NFL. I don't know about running game, but best running back in the NFL, right? To the Titans. I mean, who would, well, I guess that's what you got to do. That's smart, you know, that's smart GMing. You see the Titans, they have Derrick Henry, easily, arguably the best running back in the league for the last 4 to 5 years. What do? You got to find yourself another stud. What do they go out and do? They find Jonathan Taylor, who is an absolute stud. An absolute stud. So you got to respect what the Colts did. They went out, they identified what is a big issue in their division, which is they don't really have a running game. They see that their opponent in the division has one of the best running backs that you could ask for. Hey, go out and get one. And that's what they did. So I think Josh Jacobs against this Colts team that kind of is smelling, is kind of sniffing that AFC title. Like, again, it's the Titans control their own destiny, right? But the Colts can smell it, especially a playoff berth. The Colts can smell it. So Josh Jacobs against that Colts defense that is also going to get a lot of people back from COVID. I'm not liking that either. So Josh Jacobs is your number 2 sit-'em running back this week. And your number 1 sit-'em running back this week is Cordarrelle Patterson. Yes, I know he has been on the stardoms the last couple weeks, but Atlanta's offense looks inept. They look like they cannot do anything right. So Cordarrelle Patterson is going to be your number 1 sit-'em running back this week, taking on Buffalo defense that with that win last week could have easily jump-started them right back into the Super Bowl conversation. I mean, that defense didn't really play well, but again, Josh Allen it looks like he's going to be stepping up here for the rest of the season to make sure that they're at least competitive in every single game that they are in. So Cordarrelle Patterson is going to be your number 1 sit-'em running back this week, taking on that Buffalo defense that I think wants to make an absolute statement for the division. So Cordarrelle Patterson, your number 1 sit-'em running back. Moving on to your wide receivers, your number 3 wide receiver is A.J. Brown. And before you jump all over me, I know he had a big game. I know. But at the same time, he's going up against Josh Norman. Josh Norman is the most washed quarterback I've seen in the league. I don't know how this man still has a freaking job. As much as Niner fans want to blame Jimmy for that loss, and granted, it was on Jimmy. Jimmy had open touchdowns that he should have scored, but at the same time, you have the lead. You can't let a dude just walk down the field and catch every single pass and just win the game. You can't let that happen. Your defense, your corners have to step up. I mean, bro, this dude literally just walked down the field and just walked down the field and just was open the entire time. It was absolutely ridiculous. So A.J. Brown is going to be your number 3 wide receiver this week, taking on a Miami defense that is a lot better. That secondary in Miami is nasty. Complete secondary. So A.J. Brown is your number 3 wide receiver, almost forgot what we were talking about, wide receiver this week. Your number 2 wide receiver is Hunter Renfrow. Yes, Hunter Renfrow from the Vegas Raiders, dominating, having a solid season since the unfortunate incidents with Henry Ruggs and all that stuff took place and Darren Waller being out. But Hunter Renfrow has been going off. But again, this Indianapolis defense, I think, pins their ears back and absolutely dominates this week on defense at home against the Raiders. I think they make it really tough for the Raiders this week. So Hunter Renfrow is your number 2 sit-'em wide receiver this week. And your last wide receiver, your number 1 wide receiver for the sit-'ems this week is Christian Kirk, taking on that Dallas defense that is, I mean, you know what they are. They are tough. I mean, Micah Parsons, Travion Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence, Randy Gregory, I mean, all those guys. Ridiculous what they're able to build defensively there in Dallas. Absolutely ridiculous. Christian Kirk going to be taking on Travion Diggs. He's going to be taking on all of them. He's going to be taking on all of them, and Diggs will be covering him. He's going to be covering he's going to be covering Kirk and Green. You can definitely guarantee that. So Christian Kirk, I don't like the matchup at all there against Dallas. So Christian Kirk is your number one sit-em wide receiver this week, taking on that tough Dallas defense. Moving on to the tight ends. Your number 3 tight end this week is Mark Andrews. Yes, I know. Okay, hold your horses. I know he's been absolutely lighting it up these past couple weeks, but Mark Andrews, again, taking on that Rams defense. Like I said, that Rams team is coming together at the perfect time. Like, they really are. So I don't really like the matchup. I don't like the matchup. So Mark Andrews taking on that Los Angeles Rams defense makes him your number 3 sit-em tight end this week. And I know that is rough going into your championship and your semifinal. I know that is a rough pill to swallow, but just be careful. Just be careful. Your number 2 sit-em tight end this week is, and he was on this list last week, Mike Gesicki. Yes, hasn't been able to really replicate the productivity that he's had throughout the year. However, Mike Gesicki definitely taking on a Tennessee defense. We'll see. I think Jalen Waddle has a good game. I think Tua has a decent game. We'll see if Mike Gesicki can get open. But again, taking on that Tennessee defense after coming off kind of slow weeks for him this season, Mike Gesicki is going to be your number 2 sit-em tight end this week. And your number 1, to finish us off, your number 1 sit-em tight end this week is Tyler Higbee. I know, not really doing much throughout the year, but some people still have him. Some people are still starting him. He's not really doing much. I mean, too many weapons there in LA for him to be kind of a relevant, viable option, right? So Tyler Higbee is going to be your number 1 sit-em tight end this week. And that's all I have for you on this week's Stardom, Sit-em, or get rid of them. Alrighty, and the last thing that we have to get into, and we talk about it every single week, it always accompanies us, it is the injury report. And thankfully, we don't see that many people on the injury report that we've been seeing over the few weeks. It's going to be a lot smaller. A lot of people coming off the COVID cases, which is good to see, but you still got to make sure whatever platform you use, you still need to make sure that you are in fact checking your roster, your lineup every single day, because again, this stuff can happen in a blink of an eye, right? But before you know it, boom, quarterback's out, your running back's out, your wide receivers out, your tight ends out. You have to be paying attention on your platform to who is in and who is out, because it constantly changes every day, hourly, weekly, minute by minute. It can change a second. You just got to make sure that you are paying attention. Don't be the fool that leaves someone in that is out, right? So without further ado, let's get into it in another week's edition of the Injury Report. Alrighty, let's get into it. So we have a total of 20 people on the injury report this week, 11 on COVID and 2 moving to IR. So let's get into it. So starting us off with kind of the normal injuries, we'll call it, right? We got James Conner still dealing with that heel injury, considered day-to-day, but did miss last week, right? So if you're a James Conner guy, if you've been relying on him, he has been such a solid option this season, and he needs to come through, hopefully, this Sunday. But again, dealing with that heel injury, considered day-to-day. We'll see what happens against Dallas. They may hold him out again. They already have the playoff berth, so they know they're going to have a playoff game. We'll see what happens to see if they can get this team healthy. Next up, we got Lamar Jackson still dealing with that ankle injury, and his status is uncertain for Sunday, right? It's no real new news today, other than Lamar Jackson still dealing with that ankle injury. It's definitely going to hinder his mobility. It's definitely going to hinder his play, so watch out for that. But Lamar Jackson dealing with that ankle injury, status uncertain for Sunday. Next up, we got Justin Fields. I lost my place. Next up, we got Justin Fields, also dealing with an ankle injury. He is considered day-to-day. So I know a lot of you aren't really starting Justin Fields for your fantasy championships or your fantasy semis, but the kid has been playing better. The kid has been definitely playing better, getting better week in and week out, which is nice to see. However, dealing with an ankle injury, considered day-to-day. We'll see what happens. I mean, nothing really going on for Chicago this season. So, I mean, maybe best just kind of let him chill. Maybe come back next week for one final game, but we shall see. Next up, we got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and this one's a big one for some of you. Shoulder injury, bruised shoulder injury to be more specific. He is considered the week to week, not day to day, week to week. So he most likely is going to be a game time decision against the Bengals on Sunday, and that could be big. That could be big. He is a valuable part of that running game. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire dealing with a bruised shoulder, considered week to week. Next up, we got Adam Thielen, which is another monster injury for some of you. Adam Thielen, he's feeling sore. Mike Zimmer says he's hopeful. He's hopeful that he can be on the field for week 17, but it's not a certainty. It's not a guarantee. So Adam Thielen, definitely, that hurts a lot of people in terms of your fantasy championships and semifinals. So watch out for Adam Thielen. If he plays, it may be kind of along the same lines as what we saw last week, right? So just watch out for that, but he is feeling sore. Head coach Mike Zimmer says his status, or he's hopeful that he'll play come week 17. Next up, we got Miles Sanders, who actually broke his hand, but luckily he's expected to avoid a stint on IR, so he will be available come playoff time, and he's considered week to week. I don't know if he'll be playing this week, most likely not, but we'll see. Once the Philadelphia Eagles clinch a playoff berth, if they clinch a playoff berth, I'm sure we'll see him shut him down until they actually have to play that playoff game. But Miles Sanders, broken hand, expected to avoid a stint on the IR. However, he is considered week to week. Next up, we got Jimmy Garoppolo, and we were talking about him. This is what I was saying. So he tore his UCL, and he has a fracture in his right thumb. So his status is uncertain for Sunday. We'll see what happens. I mean, a 70% Jimmy Garoppolo or a 100% Trey Lance? I kind of am leaning towards 100% Trey Lance, right? So watch out for that. But nonetheless, Jimmy Garoppolo, torn UCL, a fracture in his right thumb, and his status is uncertain for Sunday. And finally, we got Kareem Hunt, who's still on this list, unfortunately. Ankle injury, was not present at practice, right, and questionable for Monday against the Steelers. This is a huge injury for the Cleveland Browns, right? We saw what happened, right? The Cleveland Browns need this 1-2 punch to kind of be relevant, right? That's their best thing about them is their running game. When they have Nick Chubb, when they have Kareem Hunt just firing on all cylinders, they are a tough team to beat. So Kareem Hunt dealing with an ankle injury, was not present at practice, questionable for Monday. Moving on to all the COVID cases. We have 11 COVID cases this week so far. A lot of people coming off today, so make sure you watch out for that. And remember that the NFL has adopted the CDC guidelines for COVID, meaning that you only need to spend 5 days in quarantine now rather than 10 days in quarantine. A big adjustment for some players, especially one that we'll talk about here at the end. But let's get into it. Starting us off on the COVID list, we have Tyler Huntley, right? If he's able to get off, he's definitely a sit-em quarterback this week, taking on the Rams. I don't like the matchup, but Tyler Huntley's still on that COVID-19 list. Brandon Cooks is still on the COVID-19 list. Big loss for Houston. Kaimi Fairbairn, another one still on the COVID list, right? They had their kicker was surprisingly one of the best fantasy kickers last week, I believe it was. But watch out for that. But Kaimi Fairbairn on the COVID list. Mike Williams for the Chargers, COVID list. Dalvin Cook, massive one, COVID list. Juwan Johnson, COVID list. Adam Trotman, COVID list. Tyler Kroft, COVID list. Mike Evans, COVID. And then Julio Jones, COVID. And last but not least, the man that was added yesterday, Carson Wentz. And once you know it, the NFL changes the policy so Carson can have only 5 days instead of 10, so he has a chance to come back and play against the Raiders. Oh, how the NFL loves to screw over the Raiders. Unbelievable. Moving on to IR, we got 2 people moving to IR. Number 1 is Darrell Henderson Jr. from the Rams. Big loss here, but of course, they lose somebody, they gain somebody. Darrell Henderson Jr., MCL injury, placed on IR. However, Cam Akers is coming back off of IR from that Achilles injury he suffered 5 months ago. So Cam Akers replacing Darrell Henderson basically as the running back there in Los Angeles with Sony Michel. But Darrell Henderson, MCL injury, placed on IR. And the last guy, and I kind of got into it a little bit earlier, but that is James Robinson, who just wasn't really given a fair shake this year, had a dumb coach, a stupid coach, and just was let down in all facets, honestly. I mean, you have your star quarterback, your franchise quarterback, even saying that this is the best dude on our team. What are you doing? Unfortunate. Achilles tear, most likely going to be out for next season as well. Definitely out this season, placed on IR. His season's done. I hope he has a speedy recovery, and he should definitely talk to Cam Akers about how he was able to come back so fast, because he is a versatile weapon there in Jacksonville. And the Jaguars are going to have versatile weapons with Travis Etienne coming back, right? They're going to get, I hope they get better receivers in the offseason. But James Robinson, Travis Etienne, another year for Trevor Lawrence. I think that team has a chance to be good. But James Robinson is going to finish us off for the injury report, placed on IR with an Achilles tear. And that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Injury Report. Alrighty, and that will do it for this week's edition of Stardom, Sit 'em, or Get Rid of Them, and the Injury Report. I hope you guys liked it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys for tuning in, whether it be your first time, whether it be your 39th time, since we got 39 episodes of these bad boys. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm looking to grow the channel, and you tuning in and week out definitely helps me do that. So if at any point you like what you saw, please smash that like button, smash the subscribe button, just tap on that bell notification. That way anytime new videos drop, and they normally drop every Wednesday and Friday, barring some technical difficulties, okay? But normally every Wednesday and Friday, I got content for you. It's always dropping the knowledge for you. It's right there at your feet. You just gotta look down, pick it up, shove it in the head of your, shake it around, and boom! Better fantasy player and a more knowledgeable football human being, right? Because that's what it's about. If you're not growing, you are dying. So smash that like button, smash subscribe, and just tap on that bell notification. That way you can stay up to date on all the latest content. Best part about it all, it's completely free, doesn't cost you a thing, and it super helps out the channel, and I much appreciate it. If you want more Fantasy Time, please follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Time 2021. Follow us on Facebook at The Fantasy Guy 2021, and then follow us right here on YouTube at Fantasy Time 2021, where you can just see all of our content. We've been producing content all season long. It is all there for you to enjoy. As always, the links will be down in the description for the Google Sheets. Everything we talked about in this video is on the Google Sheets. Just click on it, download it, digest it, ingest it, memorize it. Just get it in your brains so you know what the hell we're talking about, and you can follow along so you can set yourself up for success, because that is what it's all about. Good luck to all of you in your championships. May fortune and fame and happiness come your way, right? That's all I wish you guys. I wish you guys some success. And if you guys lose, no big deal. The nice thing is we have another season next year where you can give it your all. And guess what? You learn more from losing than you do winning, right? So you know what to do better next season. However, good luck to all of you in your championships. Good luck to all of you in your semi-finals, right? And that will do it for this week's episode of Fantasy Time. I am your host, Jacob Cutler, the Fantasy Guy, and until tomorrow with Brandon and I, Jacob Cutler is out.